r/AskReddit. Who was the biggest asshole you ever met? I never met this idiot. But after my cousin died in a car accident when he was next to the driver survived and came to my uncle's house few days afterwards and asked for cousin's guitar since he won't need it anymore. My younger self was selfish and rude and a liar. Nicholas. Best friends for the whole of my high school life. He continuously stressed how he was worried I would abandon him and find a new friend group at the new high school for the last year of school. I promised him it wouldn't happen. Come grade 12. We hang for about a week before he finds himself a friend group. He begs me to sit with them and I do. They're all male and I, a female, feel as I don't fit in at all. They mock me and ask why I'm there and Nicholas never stood up for me. 2 weeks of that and I befriended his twin sister who had just moved down from another town. Her and I hit it off. We are now sitting buddies. Nicholas spreads rumors that should never be burdened upon to a teenage girl. I can't handle it myself and police get involved. School recommended it since they failed to suppressing his tall tales. I believe he made the rumors because he was jealous. It upset me. Years later I still only have one friend. A best friend since the rumors made others avoid me. That friend is his twin sister. And oh boy does he hate it. She knows he's making rumors since he was dumb enough to tell her the truth. Fuck you, Nick. A prick I used to work with. Skinny short guy with acne and glasses that was the biggest kiss ass I've ever met. Our boss encouraged us to call him by his first name. This prick would call him boss, that is you got it boss, or I'm a massive bellend boss, hope you still love me boss. Anyways, we both got in at 7 and everyone else started at 8. It was a slow morning so we were both on our phones playing Hearthstone. At 7:55 our manager came in. I didn't see, but the prick did. I got given a little heat for being in my phone but it was nothing serious. Prick then proceeds to say sorry boss. I tried to tell him to not go on his phone but he wouldn't listen. Are you trying to get punched, little prick? One of my roommates, roommate number 1, in senior year of college. He's born and raised on Long Island, NY, and his family is from a very conservative region in Pakistan. He embodied every single quality that Fox News presents Muslim people to be. He detested Jewish people, Hindu people, Christian people, and the very most, he hated all women. It was so disheartening because my other roommate was Turkish, roommate number 2, and Muslim as well, without embodying any of the hatred that my horrible roommate did. Roommate number 2 constantly called number 1 out on giving Muslims a bad name. Roommate number 1 strongly believed women were meant to serve men and stay in the kitchen, and when I called him out on that, he accused me of attacking his culture and being brainwashed by being Indian. I don't consider myself Indian but he sure did. He made all of my female friends extremely uncomfortable by making very subjugating or awkwardly inappropriate comments towards them. Genuinely bad person. Marcus Luttrell, the Marine that the movie Lone Survivor is about. He visited a hotel I worked at during football season. Granted, the prices skyrocket during game season and I definitely don't agree. But as a lowly desk worker, it's out of my hands. He asked if there was a veterans discount and I told him that I apologize but during the game season we are not allowed to grant any sort of discount without manager's approval. He says some rather rude things about how ungrateful I must be that people died for my freedom to just stand there at work, and then farts at the counter. Turns to the girl he is with and says, "That'll teach her." To this day, no adult has insulted me in such a degrading, childish way. Jeff Daniels. I've met him a few times and he is unbelievably dismissive and downright nasty to his fans. The most memorable experience is when I was waiting outside of the stage door of the play God of Carnage, which also starred the very kind James Gandolfini and Marcia Gay Harden. He comes out first looking bored and tired and waves his assistant in front of him. The assistant screams "MR." Daniels doesn't do photos or autographs, no one was really there for him anyway, so no one really cared. But as he walked down the line he kept saying no autographs and wouldn't make eye contact with anyone. The best response came from the guy next to me, who turned to me and said, "Was he dumb or dumber?" I understand the plight of single parent families, but I knew a guy who was raised by his mom, and his mom was definitely somewhere on the cluster B personality disorder continuum. She imparted all of her pathological behavior to her son. This dude was a very timid in person and has literally never thrown a punch in his life. But he is the cruelest, most monstrous person in hidden ways. Gossip, passive aggression, manipulation, triangulating, backstabbing, betrayal, mind games. I would have literally killed him a few times if it wasn't for the small speck of pity I still have for him. I have noticed, though, that every 5 years or so his antics come back and completely upend and destroy his life. So his behavior is its own punishment. My neighbor that lives behind me. A minor tornado hit our neighborhood around 15 years ago, and my house got hit the worst of all the houses. After the storm ended, neighbors came over to check on us as a tree partially fell and landed on my house. He comes over and looks my dad in the eyes and says, "I am glad it happened to your house and not mine." My 3rd grade teacher was really nice and I learned well in his class. My brother enjoyed his class. 3 years later he was arrested for child porn. He was a Boy Scout troop leader, the wrestling coach for the lower grade levels, as well as an elementary school teacher. Then there's the arsehole who claimed he murdered my friend's mom. She disappeared 10 years ago and then recanted. Also the guy who drove a dead body in a freezer in the school parking lot. All in one town. My ex threw me out 5 months before we were due to move to the other side of the world together. After we had been together for 3 years. And then almost instantly started dating the girl he told me wasn't a problem for the whole 3 years. They're moving over together now. This Thursday. Hopefully London's so big I never have to see him or hear about him again when I move over next month. Fuck him. Fuck her. Fuck them both. My mom's abusive boyfriend we lived with for 2 years. Guy was one of those fake pillar of the community pricks in public. But behind closed doors he was a monster. He finally got his comeuppance when my mom didn't call the police during one of his tirades, but instead called the pastor of his church who happened to show up minutes later. His social standing was fucked and we moved out right away. Scarred but still alive. Fuck that guy. The narcissist shit who frequently wears the "it's a Tesla" thing. You wouldn't understand, as if trying to flex his superiority over the rest of the class. To put it simply, he is a power hungry, "I'm better than everyone else" type kid who probably has about 2 fucking brain cells swimming in his tiny ass brain. Edit. Spelling. My dad. There isn't even a close second. He used to keep 2 bowls of candy on Halloween. An expensive bowl and a cheap bowl. Good candy went to white kids in nice costumes. Bad bowl went to everyone else. I worked fast food and my boss's boss wanted me fired for $20 missing. There was a manager who lost $400. But fuck me, I guess. Jokes on him though, I was the only manager that knew how to do my job, so I staying until I couldn't take it anymore. My ex-boss. I wished him dead for a year. Then I came to work one morning and was told he died from a heart attack that morning. Have zero sympathy. Zero remorse. He was a sexist asshole and deserved his fate. Wishes do come true. Keep wishing. I live in LA. So pretty much the next person I meet. Brian. Can't remember if he started in JR. High or senior. High. But every single fucking day he would search for me in the crowd as we were lined up waiting for something. Lunch line is the first to come to mind. But there were other queuing occasions where he would single me out as well. Brian would ask some asinine loaded question. Typically anti-Semitic in nature. Such as, "Do you hate Jews?" Of course I would say no. Of course not. Then he would recoil in faint shock. And proceed to yell out to everyone else in the line, "OMG, Neelius hates Jews." Of course that would piss me off. Which would just encourage him. So then I started ignoring him. I would totally ignore his existence and he would still loudly proclaim some anti-Semitic bullshit that I neither said nor believe. For fuck's sake, I have Jewish blood in me. Rinse and repeat. Every single goddamn day. For fucking years. I'm now 31. 6 months ago I had a dream about this cuntwaffle and woke up. Blood boiling. Ready to tear my pillow into shreds. I wish I had socked that shitbag in the mouth when I was a freshman. There's quite a few, but one was this kid I had a couple classes with in 7th grade. He was really annoying. He would always say heartless mean things to me whenever I was sitting by. And he seemed like a cool kid that didn't give a crap about his grades or future either. He played hockey in the same league as me, just one age group lower. This was in my first season of playing, and I did kind of suck then. But he would always make sure I knew that. Not to mention that he got suspended for 3 games for fighting someone in the locker room. I usually just try to ignore toxic people like that, but I'm kind of relieved to have him out of my life now. An older brother. Here's some of the shit he did to me as a child. Pissed on me while I was asleep. Routinely hit and abused me and my older sister. Insults you for anything. Woke me up by strangling me. Would attack me for no reason. Said he would cut me if I continued defying him. Dude has never cut anyone, so this made me and my other older brother laugh. Punched a hole in my wall on vacation because he couldn't get past a timed game mission. When I was 9 and created my first email. Signed me up for a ton of porn accounts. Would hold my head when I was 8 and forced me to watch porn. When I was 10, my mom bought me this cheap but cool present. It was just a little locker. My birthday candy was in there. I leave for an hour and the thing's broken because he fucking broke it to get into candy. Condescends all the time, but if he thinks someone is doing it to him, gets really defensive and defective. He believes he's an expert on everything. He's 3 years older than me. I love him because he is my brother, but he is a giant asshole. I can't stand being with the dude for more than an hour or 2 at a time. Dude is extremely negative. My cat. There was this one guy who strangled me when I went to summer camp. And another who exploited me for popularity in school and used me for free stuff. The older guy my friends and I were hanging out with. He told me, "I have $10 right here if you touch my dick." I was 11. I lost my dollar for the bus ride home and was asking around. I just walked home. Totally disgusted and feeling like I had dirt all over me. Worst feeling in the world. Dinkelberg. My former boss. Pretends to be a Christian. Criticizes his employees openly. Lies and is the biggest narcissistic pose I have ever met. I own a mirror. Peyton Manning. I went to a bar where some of the Indianapolis Colts players were drinking after training camp. He was the loudest. "I'm better than you, douchy asshole." Told several fans no to autographs, really shitty, and told one of the managers to get these people out of here or we're leaving. I finished my beer and on my way out started doing a Steelers chant. On the flip side. Same weekend. Saw Marvin Harrison at a restaurant. On my way out I walked by his table and told him he had a great season the year before and he needed to change teams. He laughed and we talked football for like 10 minutes. He was an awesome guy. NFL always shows Colts games in my area. Bummer. Mike. Definitely that piece of shit Mike. My ex. After we broke up he broke into my house when no one was home and tried to kill himself in my bed. I came home from school and he was practically dead after poisoning himself with my anxiety meds and vodka. I called 911 and he lived. I know he did it to spite me and to get revenge on me for breaking up with him. Fuck him. We were doing presentations in health class on eating disorders. Some guy was assigned anorexia. He winged all of his presentations, so I was expecting it to be bad. But I never expected him to say, "If you starve yourself you are an absolute moron." The girl right next to me struggled with anorexia and bulimia. This kid had pulled numerous stunts that pissed me off. Hitting on my friend who was out as a lesbian at the time. Telling me stuff that people had said about me not to warn me but just to piss me off. Flicking my neck for no reason when I hadn't even talked to him that day. Just general shit that annoyed me. Sure, the school year after he seemed sorry and embarrassed for his actions. But God, I hated him for that solid year he was acting out. Scott. He's a dick. My high school basketball coach. He was both fresh off my team and varsity coach since my team didn't have our own. He made it clear that FS was not a priority, scheduled practice and not show up. Made the JV coach or one of our parents coaches during games BC he didn't show up. The moment that cemented his artillery was when he was at one of our games. Surprise. And as we were losing by 30 points BC we never got to have a decent practice he decided to cuss us out at halftime. Told us we were fking disappointments. We're a fking disgrace. We should be ashamed to put on our jerseys. Etc. All my teammates were crying. Our parents were pissed. The other school and their fans were embarrassed for us. And the refs didn't say shit. Oh yeah, he also dated a girl on varsity. She was a junior and ended up marrying her after she graduated high school. And it just recently came out he covered up sexual abuse by other coaches. He's now athletic director. Edit. Spelling. My toxic abusive ex-best friend. She was the worst person I've ever met. A guy that lives a few miles away from me. I was probably 9. Riding my bike on the road. Very rural. Anyways, my chain broke. So I walked back to my house to get my dad to help me fix it. Come back. Cannot find the bike. We walked up and down the road for so long thinking we missed it. Sometime later, walking or on a scooter or something, I then found my bike in the back of this guy's truck. I walked up to the door to let him know I was taking it. Long story short, he played finders keepers, berated me for being so loose with my possessions, and then showed me his gun. Eventually, my dad came and got it. Hate that guy. I was 16 and trying to buy a cake for my sister's birthday at a bakery that was part of a larger supermarket. I ordered the cake and was told to go pay at the supermarket's cash counters because something was wrong with the one at the bakery. Looked over. Saw the long lines of people holding onto large shopping carts. Sighed and made my way there. 20 minutes later, the line has finally shortened to one person in front of me. I watch the cashier give them their change, count out the notes left in the register, and wave them away. I had a 2000 RS note for a 400 RS cake, which I handed to her. She looked at it in my hand, glanced back at my face, and simply said no change. Really? Bitch? I saw you count out the change in the register. And this was Big Bazaar on a Sunday. Not a goddamn cigarette store in the middle of the highway. I was so pissed off I didn't bother saying anything and just walked out of the store. I really wish I'd gotten her name so that I could have reported her. This girl I knew in high school. Massive superiority complex. She refused to interact with people she saw as below her and would constantly brag about being in classes with seniors. I wouldn't be nearly as mad about her if she actually was as smart as she claimed to be. She also used her mother's cancer diagnosis to get whatever she wanted. That is, I can't help with a group project because my mom has cancer. So you can all do it for me and I'll take credit for it. She ended up graduating without any honors despite her boasting. I have to say it was satisfying to be wearing a bunch of regalia when she would constantly call me stupid and she was wearing none. I know it's petty, but she made my life hell for years. James Patterson, the author. He doesn't write his own books. He pays just out of college ghostwriters to elaborate on his skin and bones ideas. Ego like I've never seen. I got invited by my mentor to play with him and some other writers in a jam band. And one of them started ribbing him over this fact. It's an open secret among writers. Dude proceeded to throw what amounted to a tantrum and got the other guy banned from the venue. All for having the gall to question his talents. It's even weirder because most writers you meet are super chill, creative people with good attitudes. It's very rare you meet a writer, even a well-known one, with any ego at all beyond pride in their works. Which makes Patterson even more jarring. My friend's 5-year-old son. I know you're not supposed to call kids assholes, but damn he's a little asshole. The guy who called me a whore repeatedly in class for 6 days. Told him to stop but he wouldn't leave me alone. He whispering it so the teacher didn't know. I tried to ignore but eventually when I got home one day, I just broke down into tears and cried. Luckily a friend comforted me. I reported him after the 6th day and he got scolded in front of me. The reason why it made me so upset was because I dealing with my mental health and it wasn't good at all at the time. Have you ever met one of those militant hyper-feminists who give normal feminists a really bad name? I met their fucking leader. It was about an hour-long group conversation that was basically her acting like she knew everything and calling people fucking morons for disagreeing with her on things that she was very wrong about. Some people call other people these kinds of names as a hyperbole to lighten the mood because who would ever get this heated over a silly topic? This was not that. She was just an awful human being who held her ridiculously polarized opinion so highly above everyone else's that there's no way she could ever be wrong. My friend, who also hates her, told me I should go easy on her because she has issues and a few years ago attempted suicide, in what I'll call suspicious circumstances. Fuck that shit. Everybody has issues. That doesn't give you the right to be literally the worst human any of us had ever met. We actually agreed on that on several occasions. I had a music teacher in year 7. She also taught my brother who is 3 years older than me. The catch is my brother has Asperger's syndrome, which is a form of high functioning autism. She basically treated him like dirt because of that one reason. And because I'm his little sister. She also treated me the same way. I used to play clarinet and I was way more interested in that than keyboard. My brother's friend Mitchell made up a couple of nicknames for her. The first of which was Miss Pain in the Ass when she wasn't married. When she got married however, she instantly became Mrs. Craven all the attention. Her husband was just as bad. He took my brother's bandmate's phone off him in class for no reason. You read that right. And he also went through all his texts. After they got fired because so many students came forward. I later found out through my brother that they weren't allowed to go on school camp because they were caught having sex in one of the student cabins. Fuck you both. MR and Mrs. Craven. Good God, I hate you both. My mother. She was physically, verbally, and mentally abusive growing up. She left my dad when he joined the Navy because she wanted the guy next door instead. A few things she's done. Tried to kill me on many occasions growing up. Found out I needed leg braces as a kid and refused them because she didn't want an ugly kid. Told me I took after my dad's side too much and would just be pretty if you lost weight. Turned out I have an endocrine disorder and it literally wasn't my fault. Told me to kill myself because I was a terrible mother. Lied to CPS and said I was abusive because I work with kids and she wanted to ruin my job. Found out I self-harm and now uses it against me in an argument. Don't go running away and cutting yourself. She's just awful. I've spent years mourning the relationship I wish we could have had. She's just so toxic. I've spent my entire life trying to figure out what's so wrong with me that even my own mother hates me. I still can't figure out why she doesn't love me. This kid on the bus who kept making fun of me for literally absolutely no reason. He goes to my same university, so if I see him I'ma slap the shit out of him. Well, a guy that was like 6'10", third tallest person I've ever seen, and 450 pounds obese bumped into my friend as we were walking, deliberately. Flipped us both off when my friend yelled indignantly about it. Then got in his car and totally soaked us, hitting a puddle at the exact right angle on the way past. This was in the parking lot at the county fair. I went to school with this guy and almost every day he would sneak into the girls' locker room. One day we told a teacher and instead of him admitting it, he blamed me and my friends. The authorities were contacted. And every girl in the locker room had to testify against someone to the cops. I don't know how many years he got. But I hope he's still rotting. Edit. One of my friends looked him up online. Apparently he molested some of the girls, so he has a long time in prison. Didn't catch the exact amount. My mom. Classic narcissist. Blamed her ill health on me because she got pregnant with me late. Constantly told me how she would have aborted me if not for the fact that she needed consent forms to be signed by my dad. Blamed me for my father's sickness and eventually his death. Any gifts I received for birthdays, especially cash, she always took it and used it on herself. When my dad's life insurance came through, which I was the beneficiary of, she forced and bullied me to transfer it to her name. Once she randomly got rid of all my books and toys because they were taking too much space. All that stuff cumulatively took up the space of one bedside drawer. I loved my books, they were my only escape growing up. Her sister was gravely ill, but she didn't want to sit with her in her bedroom and insisted that her sister should come out to the living room to talk to her. Her sister could not. She died the next day. My boss yells at us purposefully in front of customers instead of waiting until we aren't busy. Or if we aren't busy, he seems to wait until we're slammed with orders. Makes us stop what we're doing just to correct something that was done a couple days ago. Like getting a new container for food when we don't even need any at the moment. Stands there while we're slammed busy on his phone. And also my dog died. I was crying all day and vomiting. But I still had to come in and work till close cause a guy wanted to go fishing with his dad. And he called off 30 minutes before work. I'm turning in my 2 weeks today. I was in Raleigh, NC riding a Lime scooter to Cookout. I had just picked it up from the guy who charged it. Cookout is like a good 2 miles from downtown and it was midnight at New Year's Eve. So I go to Cookout, order my food, and the guy who charges it shows up and takes the scooter. I yelled to him, hey, that's my only way of getting back to my hotel besides walking. The dude just looked at me and said in a sarcastic tone, well, that's too bad, then put the scooter in his truck and drove away. It had like 95% battery left. Thankfully I got to ride back with someone there. My soon-to-be ex-husband found out he was having an affair after he gave me an STD. He abandoned me and our 3 sons. Pays little to no child support and ignored our 9-year-old in the street. We've had to move to get away from him and his psychotic mother, and my kids are traumatized. My boss. A coworker informed boss that his grandmother died and that he needed off to go to the funeral. Boss asks him, well, were you close to her? The guy never says a word as long as you do your job, but as soon as life happens and you need something, he becomes a complete piece of shit. He was my boss at a small locally owned grocery store. His sister was the owner's wife. He was morbidly obese. Smelled like cat food and cigarettes and spent all night watching porn and drinking Sierra Mist in his little office while the rest of the night crew busted ass. One weekend he sexually harassed the woman who worked with us. Tried to fire me for being late to work when I was in a car accident. Called me and another worker fucking idiot kids and didn't hire a good applicant for the job because he was black. In 2 days. Finally one day I fucking lost it on this guy. Told him he's a fat useless piece of shit and he should kill himself and do society a favor. Got fired obviously. I stand by what I said too. If you're reading this, Tim, fuck you, you fat sack of worthless shit. Lived across the street. Used to live at his. My dog and I caused him to move. Because he threw a billiard ball at me for just wearing a dress. Which I dodged. And commanded my dog to attack. Funny thing is the ball didn't hit me. It hit the sheriff, who was my uncle. The ass was being maimed by my dog. Who was trained to protect me or my uncle. The police saw the CCTV video and saw that my dog was protecting me and my injured uncle. And that my dog obeyed my command to release the bastard. And sat beside my legs. The cops even petted him. To top all off, my dog is a small dog just little larger than a chihuahua, and no charges were placed on me. The guy spent some years in the slammer. Then moved. My dog was hailed a hero by our neighbors that the ass had wronged, arson, graffiti, destruction of property, defecting in a neighbor yard, etc. My stepmother and her daughter. My dad died last month and neither of them shed a single tear. And today the dog had to be put to sleep and again. Neither of them shed a tear. Soulless. Through and through. An engineer that works at the shop just jumped into one of the top spots of biggest arsehole last week. I'm a machinist. He walks by and is chuckling at us. And my co-worker asked him what's so funny. He looked us dead in the face and said, we hardly do any work and we get paid way more than you do, and starts laughing again and walks off. I was speechless. I started laughing after because I couldn't believe someone would be such a blatant dickhead. A guy named Julius. He bullied me from kindergarten into high school. He does that to everyone he doesn't like. He and 4 of his friends attacked me and a friend during recess when no one was around. He verbally abused another friend of mine, 16, at a camp. Until he broke down crying several times. After that last incident I went to him and punched him in the face. I usually refrain from violence, but I don't regret that right hook in the slightest. His brother shows the same violent traits and his sister is just an inconsiderate ass. Something must have gone wrong in their parenting. My current boss. He is an old, rich divorcee who takes pleasure out of insulting his employees. I unfortunately found myself in a situation where it appeared I was at fault. Yet I hadn't done anything wrong. And after yelling at me, he said you have a long life ahead of you, along with a lot of failure. He's called other employees animals, stupid, and once told a worker to kill himself. I can't wait for the day where he suffers a heart attack and drops dead. Pete Rose yelled at me when I was a kid for asking for his autograph at a baseball game. My deadbeat baby daddy. We were together for 4 years. Planned our baby. Then once I got pregnant he left me for a 16-year-old girl and got her pregnant too. I moved states and went NC. There was this one time as a kid I was at a carnival. I will never forget this massive fucking asshole I met in the House of Mirrors. Most of the managers in my last job were assholes. One time, one of them gave me extra hours while I was doing my shift. The other one made me clean the bathroom, even though we had a janitor on shift. I was glad that I quit. Edit, people think that I was bitching about my previous job, but I've been in a lot of stress at that time and I felt like I was going nowhere. But now that I have an Uber job, I can finally work as much as I like and get a lot of money while I'm at it. It has its flaws, but it's still better than my last job, which was retail BTW. I don't know if this guy was the biggest, but he was the most recent. I was in the 15 items or fewer lane at the store, and after I got all my stuff out of the cart, I realized I had maybe 17 or 18 items. I noticed the guy behind me was counting my items. So I turned to him and apologized for not estimating correctly, and this fucker began lecturing me, telling me that I'm old enough to know better, and on and on. So I looked at him, made sure he wasn't joking, and I said, you know, guys like you need to wear a warning sign across your chest. Asshole. He was actually kind of stunned by my response. Good. I've played a lot of poker and two biggest assholes I've met while playing are Dan Bilzerian and Matt Marifati. Dan Bilzerian is total sociopath and Matt Marifati is the biggest douche ever. One time Bilzerian decided to entertain the table with his stories of beating women. I can still clearly remember one incredibly violent and horrifying story he told. I think whole rest of the table was horrified but he was cracking himself up. Matt had a huge ego and was berating everyone else at the table. He was especially nasty and belittling to his girlfriend sitting next to him. My ex. His favorite hobbies were gaslighting, coercion and emotional abuse. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I was 9 and asked him for his autograph when he was sitting next to me waiting for a table at a restaurant and he told my dad he would for $200. My 6th grade social worker MRS. Howard. I loathed that fucking bitch. The entirety of my sessions with her would include me huddled on the couch in complete fear, crying, while she shouted at me and got angry at me for crying and continued to shout for whatever thing I'd done or said that had not been considered normal behavior. It really helped old bullied, autistic me out. Thankfully the next year I got a dude named Mr. Davis instead and he was so cool and we'd talk about Star Wars and science fiction and he'd teach me drum stuff. This YouTuber called Dear Right had almost 3k subs and was still doing that fake ass if you like my comment and sub I'll sub back. Ryan. He's still on Reddit and hasn't helped me move the fridge yet. Of course I know him. He's me. Literally read this at first as, who has the biggest asshole you've ever met and nearly croaked in confusion. I'm tired and need to go to bed. But to answer your question, I'd have to say my own mom sadly. Derek. My teammate's abusive dad. He was a military chaplain and maintains this holier than thou entitlement around everyone while physically and emotionally abusing his wife, daughter, and son behind closed doors. He's a piece of shit. Daughter is too afraid to alert CPS because she is so close to graduating and leaving the house. Whole team has discussed the situation with her and she knows that she has immense support. Still feel the need to alert authorities. Though. Most disgusting thing is how much he sucks up to authority but has no respect for his family, women, and anyone in any position below him. He despises me because I always give him a piece of my mind. His very existence makes my blood boil. I wanted to reply, but then I realized that fucker isn't worth the attention. Herb Monsieur, attorney in Knoxville, TN. A very red-faced person at my school who literally tries to be as disruptive and obnoxious as possible in class. He literally yells so loud that teachers hear him in other classes and complain about it. He also tries to derail the class, get everyone to stop focusing on the lesson, ruin the teacher's day, etc. He also likes to annoy the most vulnerable person in the class, to get her to scream at everyone. Worst of all, he likes to get into trouble. My parents. Proudly and blatantly homophobic and racist. My neighbor. I live close to where Hurricane Florence hit. He stocked up on cases of bottled water beforehand and tried to sell them for $100 after. Russell Westbrook. My step-in shit sister. She posts stuff on Facebook just to make people angry and then goes crying that she's a victim and that we should all feel sorry for her. She used me for that drama and got her birth mother in on it. And then turned and did the same thing to her. Fuck you. L. The Audi that was up my ass just now on the M1. Then that Peugeot that hogged the outside lane. Then the lorry that overtook another lorry and held the entire motorway up. Come to think of it, they're all knobs. Steven Seagal. I think for most people it'll be parents or ex-spouses or other people to whom they're close. It's a lot easier to see all of a person's faults when you know them well. That guy who cut me off on the freeway is one thing, but emotional abuse or pressure for years would trump that, I would think. Karen with the hair. Myself. This kid from my school named Ramon who suffered from a Napoleon complex and took it out on me. Ended up losing my music for band because it was stolen by him. Gained lack of confidence for like a year because of the insults. And he stole my 3DS with like $200 worth of games on it. TLDR. Fuck you Ramon. The neighbor who put out rat poison for my family dog. This dick I just played on Rocket League. This arsehole parks in between two handicapped parking with his old ass Mercedes. If you want to get nothing in return, you can like and join my Discord. There is a link in the description.